Good afternoon, everybody. It's Dr. Karen here. So we are about to get started and talk a little bit about, all right, now my video's going. So Dr. Karen here. Um, we are going to today talk about how you as the SLP can support vocabulary in your students, specifically when it comes to what you can suggest for parents to do at home to build vocabulary and reinforce what you're doing in therapy. I get a lot of questions about this, and a lot of times the question comes in the form of what app can I use to help build my child's language skills, or what app can I use to build vocabulary? And my gut response to that is usually that the best way to build language and vocabulary is not through an app. So, with that being said, I know that this year is a little bit different, and a lot of times people might be coming from the angle of, you know what, sometimes I've just got to have my kids sit and do something that's going to occupy them so I can sit here and try to get something done. And that's just gotten more prevalent this year since we've all been quarantined together. And people are a little stir crazy. Everybody's had way more screen time than they would have liked this year. And so it's a little bit different this year. But I think that my answer to this question would be the same regardless. So I did want to dive into it. And the other thing is that I think parents in that situation are kind of like, all right, I know that maybe an app or having them on a device isn't the best thing. But sometimes I do have to go get some things done. I need a little bit of a break myself. And what kinds of things can I do if my child is going to be sitting there watching TV or on a device anyways? What can I actually do during that time to do something that's at least productive while they're sitting there occupying themselves? So if that's the case, if you're coming from it from an angle of, all right, I've already got these things in place to build my child's language skills, and what can I do on top of that when my kids actually are on a device, because that is just a fact of life these days, then it's a little bit different. So I do have some suggestions for you. But I wanted to come back to the first question just about what can we do and what can we recommend for parents when it comes to helping them reinforce what we do in therapy and build vocabulary at home. And so my initial response to that is always that you want to keep it as simple as possible. Yes, there are a lot of things that you can do to help parents at home. A lot of parents are really proactive and want some more specifics, but the first thing that I always recommend be in place before we do anything that's more complicated is that you want to make sure that they are reading regularly with their kids. That is, we know that there's tons of research on that kids learn vocabulary through reading, through being read to, through having discussions about words and concepts in the book and about the characters and what's going on. So that is something that should be a regular practice. Usually what's recommended is 20 minutes a day. Even if you can get 20 minutes 3 to 4 times a week, that is a good practice. So that is one of the most powerful things that you can do if parents want to build vocabulary and build language skills. So if before you do anything else beyond that, make sure that habit is in place at least a handful of times a week. So that is one thing that we know is really important. And we know that there is with kids who struggle to read, they tend to read less, which means that they have less exposure to text language. And a lot of kids in the elementary years, they're learning a lot of vocabulary through reading. So if that child is not reading a lot and their peers are, that gap is just widening. And if they are being read to, or if somebody's reading with them and that allows them to read a book that they normally wouldn't be able to read on their own, then that enables them to have some exposure to that more sophisticated vocabulary that they might not have normally gotten had they not been able to read. And the thing is that the more that they're able to build their vocabulary, the better their comprehension will be and the easier reading will be. A lot of times kids don't like to read because it's hard and they're not good at it. And nobody likes to do something if they feel like they're not good at it. So the more that you can encourage that habit, the better. And then, if that's in place and you're doing those things and parents have that good habit in place and then they want to add something on top of that, then that's where we can talk about, all right, now that we've got the basics in place, what else can I be doing? So when it comes to you as the SLP, there is what you're doing in therapy. And then there is, all right, what can the parent be doing to expand what you're doing? So yes, you can certainly have some things that you're doing in therapy and send some homework home if the parent is already doing those other basic things, like their child is already doing all their other homework for their other classes and they're already reading regularly with their child. Then that's where you can start building on top of that. But if parents are really wanting an app, especially if they do have a hard time reading with their kids, one of the good options for them would be something really simple, something like a screen reader, or even something like Audible that will just read audiobooks to their kids. A lot of adults have a hard time reading still, and the way that they're able to consume more content and actually read more is through audiobooks. So that is, while there is a lot of, it's really important for them to actually be reading and looking at print, audiobooks are a great option to add on to that, especially if reading is hard and you want to minimize the cognitive load a little bit. And also, if you have a child who can sit there and listen to a book, that is something that can enable the parent to not have to be actively doing that. Again, they should still be reading with their kids, but that can be something else that they could add on top of that. That's a really good option. And the thing I like about that is that if you have a screen reader and you're focusing on listening, that is neurologically something that is a little bit better than an app that has all kinds of lights and all kinds of stimulation and things going on. And the thing is that if you're actually looking at a screen, you're getting that blue light and there's lots of stuff going on and it's really busy. It almost teaches your brain to need that. And if there's a child who has attention issues, neurologically, a lot of screen time isn't good. We know that it's not really, it's not great to have too much screen time for anybody, but something that is requiring you to sustain focus with a lot of stuff going on that's really just focused on the story and the words, and maybe some of them have storybooks with like a video that you watch as they're reading it, and that's okay too. But the more you can make it less busy, the better. So screen readers would be my go-to option if parents want something that's on a device, that's an app that builds vocabulary and language. Again, keeping it super simple. You don't have to, not that I'm against some of the other vocabulary apps out there, but my first recommendation would be keep it simple. Now, when it comes to what you can do as an SLP in therapy, my go-to is always that a lot of times when kids struggle with comprehension and that high level processing, that we really want to make sure that things like vocabulary and sentence structure at the word and sentence level are intact. Because what happens is that if you don't have adequate understanding of syntax and vocabulary at the sentence level, if you don't have good decoding, then you will have an increased cognitive load. You're spending a lot of time trying to figure out what individual words mean, what sentences mean, and if you can't understand the meaning of that one sentence, it's hard for you to get the meaning of the big picture. So a lot of times when there are breakdowns in reading comprehension, it's because there are underlying language issues. And there has been research that has shown that if you don't address those underlying language issues at the word and sentence level, then kids aren't able to respond as well to those things that are focused on high level cohesion. So that is why when I teach SLPs a framework for language therapy, I start with those things at the word and sentence level and make sure that those underlying language skills are intact. And then we start to layer onto that. Now, of course, while you're working on that in therapy, a good thing that parents can be doing is working on reading comprehension and hitting it from that angle. So you're getting a little bit of both. And also teachers are working on comprehension strategies as well. That's not to say that high-level comprehension strategies never have a place in language therapy, but I do focus on making sure that those underlying language skills like vocabulary, things like morphology and semantics and syntax, things like that are intact so that you know that you have good comprehension at the word and sentence level so that we can build on that. So I still have an online presentation where I outline that framework that I use and that I teach SLPs in my signature program that walks through how you in your sessions can actually work on those underlying language skills that build vocabulary, so you have a really solid foundation so that when you start to work on high level comprehension, kids are actually ready to respond. So I will share that that registration for that online presentation in the description of this video, and then also in the comments below this video, and you can check that out and you can see how you can start to build a framework for language therapy that really ensures that you are building that foundation so that kids are able to better respond to those high level strategies focused on comprehension, and that you as the SLP are really owning your unique expertise so that you are building the skills that your students are likely not going to get anywhere else in the general education curriculum, not because the general education isn't good, but simply because it wasn't designed for kids who have those language processing issues. That's where you come in and get to be that missing puzzle piece that helps them to tie things together so that they can actually benefit from, being able to sit down and read a book and learn vocabulary and understand what they're reading, and finally be able to actually enjoy reading because they're able to have comprehension, understand what's going on, which is really what it's all about. Obviously, if you don't understand what's going on in a book, it's not going to be very much fun to read. So that's where you can make a really powerful impact in your sessions by building those underlying language skills, while at the same time you can have parents working on things like reading with their kids at home, and you're really hitting it from two angles so that the kids are getting the best of both worlds. So check out that presentation and you can learn that framework and see how it works and just how the research all fits in to supporting that framework so that you can help your kids have that better comprehension and expression so that they can thrive in school and really enjoy reading. Thanks so much for watching, and check out that, just click on that registration link to check it out.